There we go. Recording is started. Again, so thank you everyone for joining us today. We are here to talk about spoga+gafa 2021. We don't know where 2020 went. We kind of skipped over it because the world was staying home. Today, my goal is to kind of get you a show update for what I know today. I will give you my own personal speculations along the way, my own personal feelings, and I will preface them when they're my thoughts versus fact and where we're looking forward. I will also be bringing up topics that I don't actually have answers for yet, that we need more time to get to have those full answers. At any time, please do interrupt if you find a question. If you notice someone else on the call that you recognize and you want to ask them a question about what's going on for them or what they're seeing, please do that. I think it'd be fun to almost have you folks also helping and support one another. There's people on today's call that from all sectors of the show. We have barbecue and grill folks, we have some furniture folks, we have some accessory folks. So pretty much all of the halls are represented in today's call. The general flow what I want to do today is to kind of give you a current status of travel to Cologne first. Then we'll talk about what we're going to call our Be Safe program, which is all of the safety protocols and changes in attending and changes in exhibiting as we know them today, as they affect the show, and then physical changes that will be happening at the Spoga show that are direct to that event. That's with the, if there aren't any initial questions, I'm going to jump right off into that spot. I'll pause here for just a second. If anyone doesn't know, Zoom does have a chat feature. So if you don't feel like actually speaking, please feel free to use the chat feature. And I will also be paying attention to that as well and can read off those questions and answer those questions. You can ask them to all or ask them just to myself. So the 800-pound gorilla, what's going on with Spoga? Will Spoga open? Will Spoga happen? As of today, as of Koelnmesse's management's decision and all the powers that be, Spoga will go on as planned, opening on its new date on May 30th, going to June 1. Yes, it's another holiday weekend for us here in the States. We went from Labor Day weekend to Memorial Day weekend. For the joy of the global calendar. But I will say in 21, this is a temporary time spot for 21. In 22, I am told the show will settle down about 2 to 3 weeks later, about a mid to end of June time slot will become the traditional home going 22 and forward. Part of Koelnmesse's mission as far as returning to business, when you ask what's going on in Germany, the German government updates its regulations about every 2 weeks. They make federal mandates as far as that they've determined trade shows and business travel are essential to business. And they actually have a different set of rules when it comes to quarantine. And we'll go through those in a moment. They do not follow the typical rules that you will hear on the nightly news, or if you just kind of search German travel, it's kind of buried in a subtext of how business travel is exempt because it is deemed essential, and particularly trade show travel is also deemed essential. The federal government then allows the different regional states to make their own direct decisions within their territory. So we're in Northwest Rheinfelden, and Northwest Rheinfelden has said, yes, again, travel is essential, business travel is essential, trade shows are critical to their region. They want to see it open, and then they have guidelines and rules. So with that, we have been watching trade shows taking place in Germany since end of August, beginning of September. The first or second week in September, our friends from Media Exhibition Companies up in Dusseldorf held Caravan. And the Caravan show was a great example of 108,000 people coming together to having a trade show that was open to the public. And that trade show has not had was not noted as a hot spot of issue. Did not create problems for them related to COVID. There have been subsequent trade shows. There's been so far throughout all of Europe. I think I saw a number somewhere online. There's been about 48 or 50 different trade shows that have now taken place throughout domestic and international shows throughout the EU. And they seem to be, again, operating following protocols and operating without any problems. Sorry, my dog was barking. So I'll get her. There we go. I'm unmuted, right? Yeah, sorry, my dog was barking. I tried to quiet that down. So with trade shows operating, they've been back. They've been kind of slowly getting back to normal. You'll see in the news, cities like Frankfurt Messe has canceled all trade shows through the end of March. Cologne was actually surprised by that decision. We are moving forward. We have two events opening next month. One is called our Cologne. It's one of our own trade shows, and then we have a guest event opening also next month. Then in January we have two more shows. Early February we have another show. Then we kind of go on from there. And then spoga+gafa is kind of relatively far down the calendar for trade shows. By the time spoga+gafa gets here, we will have seen upwards of about 15 to 20 trade shows at our physical fairgrounds. Part of the travel policy to go to Germany is a negative COVID status. So the current regulations prescribe that you can come to Germany without quarantine as long as you have a negative COVID test no more than 48 hours before entry, meaning I go Monday to take my test, I get my test back Tuesday, I get on my plane Tuesday, and I arrive early Wednesday morning. I show them my negative COVID test, I am good. Have a good time, you're done. You'll show that at immigration, you'll show that at your hotel. You can now do your trade show and you have fun. There's no additional need for quarantining at that point. I will preface that is today's rule. That rule was just updated on, like last week. Will it change again? I would expect it to, particularly by the time we get the spoga. Will that even be around anymore? Probably negative COVID testing, yes. The quarantining piece or how long and any of that stuff, I'm sure is going to change as many times as we can all guess, particularly because we have quite a bit of time on our side. And then as far as traveling around Cologne, mandatory face masks for the city of Cologne. Walking in public areas, in any gathering of people, if you're by yourself somewhere, I'm told the rules are not, or it's not needed. But if you go like anywhere, walking near in any of the public spaces, walking near the cathedral, obviously where there's people around, face masks are required. And I'm told there's 3 different levels of possible ticketing. And I think I have them all memorized, right? It's a 250 euro fine if you're on public transportation without a face mask. It's a 150 euro fine if you're in a store or an establishment without a face mask. And then I think there's one more fine, I think, which is the public spaces. It's like 50 euro or 75 euro if you're found without a face mask in those kind of public gathering areas that are outdoors. Luckily, Germans follow rules. So they've been doing it. And that's just way they just go through life. Restaurants, similar. Well, Chicago just changed its rules going into effect tomorrow, but in general, limited indoor dining, outdoor dining, obviously takeout. Those things are how they're currently operating as a facility. Hotels are open, as I say, negative COVID test. If you're coming from a non-whitelisted country, we'll call it, there's about 5 countries on the white list. Canada, as of yesterday when I checked, is still on that white list. They do not need any negative test or any kind of showing. They automatically are in. US is on the list that requires a negative COVID test. Same thing with Mexico to be allowed to enter. I'm going to pause there for a quick moment to allow anyone to unmute themselves and ask questions about the travel to Germany before we look at what the protocols will be at the show. Oh, silence. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say really quick, Darren, just curious I assume that the time will change, but what were the hours for a negative COVID test right now?
As of today, 48 hours.
Perfect. Thank you.
Before entry. And some of that's also, as you say, is going to change dramatically. Well, between now and spoga, it's going to change. It's inevitable. We're just changing. Our restaurants were allowed indoor dining. Now, starting Wednesday, our governor just shut that down. The things that I think will also affect that, United is currently just started testing. I think it was this week I saw in the news where they can do testing at the airport. You get your results at the airport, and it gets loaded into this global app that's being done with the World Health Organizations and a number of different bodies that becomes your global COVID passport or your health passport. And it's rapid testing at the airport. They are charging for it. It's like $150, and they're testing it between Newark and Heathrow. And then I'm also told in certain routes going into Hawaii as well, they have this rapid prototype, this rapid testing to show this negative COVID test. I was also reading Abbott Laboratories is in the process of rolling out now. There's the article is saying that they're producing 50 million units for distribution starting by November. And that is a saliva based test that, again, is also tested with a short base time. And then they have their own protocol app that shows you when you tested, how many times you tested, how often you tested, all of those kinds of features that are built into that app. So I think as we move towards SPOGA, now it's kind of speculative. No one understands how most of these things will work. I think by the time we get to the first quarter of next year, I think some of this technology will be in place. The concept of a vaccine, whether you believe in wanting to take it or not, we won't get into that kind of topic today, but I think you'll start seeing some of that roll out that'll start changing how this all impacts, particularly global travel and let alone trade shows and mass gatherings. I think one of the most difficult things for a lot of people to deal with, particularly as you know, as we talk to mostly Americans across all my industries, the US doesn't have a roadmap of how to get back to trade shows at this point. Companies are working hard. An industry association called CISO is working hard. We're lobbying. Companies like Reed Exhibition and Emerald here in the States, they're all working extremely hard to get safe models built of how to do trade shows. But if you have one here in Chicago, the governor's just not hearing it. And there's not a prescribed path of check these boxes and we can talk about it. Where in Europe, particularly in Germany, it's a much forward conversation. They have a checkbox. We have a roadmap. We have a plan. And that plan then comes to life in what we call Be Safe. And each of the fairgrounds have something like this. We all do something a little bit different. Before I go into Be Safe, does anyone else have a comment or a question? Okay. So let me move into what Be Safe is. So Be Safe is kind of an overview of everything we have going on at our fairgrounds. There it is. You can find it all on our corporate website. It's being updated onto all of the actual individual show websites, and it comes in different components. And the 4 pieces, when we talk about hygiene, safety, distancing, exhibit guidelines, and how we're changing the organization and our facilities. The first part of changing our facilities. So attendees have had digital tickets for a while. Exhibitors are now going to be issued digital tickets. You will scan those tickets. You will then get entry into the fairgrounds. So we're moving to a ticket list based system so that and we're actually getting rid of our registration and ticketing systems and counters. You will have people there to assist you, but you will do everything on your own devices on your own phone. I'm told things like CodeCheck are also moving to some kind of more expedited, less contact system. I'll believe that when I see it. I actually can't imagine how that personally works because you have to hand someone a jacket, but supposedly there's a system coming along on that one. Other things where we used to individually bag check, where we did bag checks that you've seen that are different security and safety protocols. You will see, here it is. Here's a photo of a new monitoring system as it loads. That it's not doing temperature scanning, but it's doing the bomb detection and metal detections, or some type of security protocols are being checked through these types of devices as people are checking in. All of these things, if you're on LinkedIn, you might see some photos. If you follow anything that we do, we've been testing all of the things I'm going through right now. We've had for a month, we have a Be Safe Village where we're testing the technology. We're testing different booth designs, getting feedback on booth designs from the state, from health ministries, from key exhibitors, from representatives, even from attendees, all coming to experience. And we'll look at some of these photos when we talk about the actual booth dynamics of how we're doing this. So we've changed how our physical entrances will then take place. We are also changing, obviously face masks are required at this time. The floor plans will also physically change. All of the aisles are now going to be a minimum of 5 meters wide. So almost 20 feet wide aisles. If a 20-foot wide aisle is not passable, then it's going to be like your supermarket. They're going to be arrowed for one-way direction to allow for the passing of individuals. Things like hygiene, without being said, yes, increased cleaning, increased sanitation by us, overnight deeper sanitation. Those are kind of the things I would say we all take for granted probably at this point and expected. Hand sanitizer every 35 feet that you walk, because you can't possibly walk in somewhere without finding it every 5 feet. All of those things will, of course, be in place. The key things is then how, things like parties. We're not currently scheduling any, like the Spoga night party or any of these kinds of gatherings. Exhibitors won't be allowed to have some of those parties that you might see in booths overnight. But what it doesn't mean is you still can have hospitality. Food service is still fine. Our concession stands will still be open. Did away with buffet lines, different kind of food service. They have tables still because you still can eat. You can obviously take off your mask to eat, but again, creating more space between how the tables are and where people can kind of gather and allowing more space for these areas. Fortunately, Spoga's in a nice time of year. We will have increased outdoor spacing as well to accommodate this. One of the key areas that you might be more concerned about is how does this actually affect my exhibit? Well, to an exhibit, there's now even regulations to the number of people allowed in a booth at this point in time. As I say, I probably have to say that repeatedly, because as this goes forward, who knows by the time we get to like March, let alone April, forget about to the end of May. So as of today, the first shows that we're doing, if you have a 12 square meter booth, let me bring up a picture because this will make it a little simpler to see. So it essentially, what the new requirement is, if you could think of, for every 4 square meters, you're allowed one body in that building, being your booth. So a 12 square meter booth, in theory, is allowed 3 people. To accommodate, to make that a little more friendly, once this file opens up, I'll show you. There you go. So here's an example of a 12 square meter booth, 4 meters wide by 3 meters deep. But then they're going to give this extra meter red carpet, let's call it, in front of the booth. And what that is, it's kind of like the off ramp for the accident. So you walk down the aisle, the customer can step here, get out of the way of traffic. Technically, it's not in your booth, but they're off, so that the space is now really 16 square meters. And now you're allowed 4 people in the booth. So you can say 2 employees and 2 guests at any given time. And it's kind of like the hokey pokey, because 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's a fluid situation. They are going to be monitoring this. And essentially, when we've asked the questions, how is this monitored? How is this enforced? What is the ramifications of it? Essentially, if they come by your booth and they see you have 20 people in your booth, they're going to speak with you about, hey, we need to do something here. They come by your booth and they see, hey, you have 5 instead of 4, but it's kind of like one's kind of on their way out and one just arrived. No one's going to be given a hard time in that. Or they'll say, hey, can we make one of these meetings, come back in a few minutes and have people join at a later point to try, if you're kind of constantly abusing the scenario. But what the difference is in this red carpet area, it's not technically part of the person's booth. So no product display, no booth building, no booth display will be in that space. It just will be red carpet. Versus here, if someone purchased the 15 square meters, then they can exhibit all the way out to that aisle. Does that make sense so far in the number of people per cubic space? Okay. Along with the distancing rules is, and not only is there a number of cubic space needed per person, we've also implemented rules along the distance between, we'll say, nose to nose. So if you can keep more than 1.5 square meters 1.5 meters straight line distance between you and the person you're speaking with. No additional barrier is needed. So in a 12 square meter booth, let's bring one up here. This is one that we're using for our candy show. So each one of these panels is a meter. So if you were standing here at the outside post and that guest was sitting in the chair, you don't need a physical barrier between the two of you because you're 1.5 meters nose to nose talking. The example here in the photo, you're not separated by that same distance. So a physical shield is required. So we can look at some booth designs. So all of the modern booth designs will have shields on information counters being installed on them, or somehow being added to it. Or again, you set it back so you don't require it. It's kind of, there's different ways to manage it, but it's if there's a conversation is to take place at under 1.5 meters, a physical shield is to be installed in the booth. What's not in these photos that you'll see, and not in this rendering, is like at this table, you could still have meeting tables. Let me bring up that photo. Here's one kind of version. They're sitting at kind of a counter having this discussion. It's kind of like going to your supermarket or to stores. And here's an example of a shield being installed in that scenario. There's another photo I have here. Oh, those are the same ones. Here. Like on a bar counter, or you could do it on the same small table. Again, some kind of small shield. Addition to these physical items that are needed in your booth, exhibitors are going to be required to sanitize and maintain their own stations. And I'm going to bring up another photo here in a moment. So what does that mean? So in between guests, you need to wipe down the table with sanitizing product. You will need to sanitize if you have a product that is kind of hard, like, or writing implements that you're sharing, or screwdrivers, or I don't know, whatever that physical product is. They are asking that you wipe down those products. You wipe down in between guests. Similar to also, you're required to provide disinfectant and hand disinfectant in your booth, whether it's a small little bottle you have on the table. Here's an example of a larger one being installed. All variations. These things you can't, those types of disinfectants and cleaning will be available in your service kits. So whether you're in a turnkey package, one of our custom booths that you get from our office in Chicago, we will have these items added to the package. Some things are included, some things are available for additional purchase. If you're buying a Koelnmesse package like you see here in the photo, these items are all, again, in that service kit. Or if you have your own stand construction, then you just need to kind of make the plans to bring those items with you and make these accommodations with your stand construction company, and or find a local supermarket or the hardware store that's in town. Bauhaus or Obi, I'm forgetting off the top of my head, is within like a 5-minute car ride from the fairgrounds. You can see from our main office building. I mean, as you can see here in this kind of picture, one of these examples of those one-way arrows being used to direct traffic.
Darren, on the shields, can you wear face shields? Would that count?
I'm going to get back to you. I don't know. Oh no.
I just didn't know if it had to be a certain size shield, or if
no.
the
For the love, sometimes you would think my German friends should be very detailed orientated, but they love specifications and they love their detail with that. It's unfortunately, there's a lot of this. It's a lot of gray zone still, but I will ask that question and get back to you on that as far as if one party has a face shield, does that count? Because as you can see here, like in this booth, they have these kinds of tables here, but again, there's no shield between anyone because they're kind of watching a presentation, and the assumption is this is one group. You'll see that also in some other pictures here that I have. Here. So to accommodate some of this, they are making available in our shows these meeting zones, these specialized areas, and I'll zoom into this picture in a minute. But again, you can see here, The left to right, there's no shield. It's you and the guest that the shield is installed. And some of this also boils down to personal comfort. But a lot of our shows, I'm seeing that they're implementing, it's a little hard to see in this picture here, this kind of rendering so that you can come and have access to these meeting rooms and to this meeting space. Some shows are using this as kind of an upgrade where you can rent it for a fee. Some are including it as part of the show, and it varies a little bit. And I don't have yet with what Spoga is actually going to make available, but these are rooms where some are private, full closed door rooms. Some are kind of more open, kind of like this kind of format that we see here in this picture. You can have food service brought to those meeting rooms. So again, because we realize the number of people being able to be accommodated in a booth might be more limited. So these additional spaces are going to be made available, and it's a show by show cases. And with Spoga still far enough away, they're still working out the game plan for some of these things, particularly this topic. One of the other questions that they are, or one thing that they are doing is we also have a new program called eGuard. And the eGuard app actually will be part of the show app. And the eGuard app allows you to see the density of the show floor. Basically, if you can imagine traffic lights. So if you're looking in the app and you see hall 4.2 is red, you as an individual can then make the decision, I'm going to go to 4.1 because it's green now, and I'll go to 4.2 later because it's red. I'm not comfortable going into a zone that has heavy traffic at this time. And so it's looking at anonymous data throughout just general traffic flow of the show to allow guests to kind of pre-pick or pre-route themselves to accommodate traffic. This is also another example. I'm not sure where this, I think this is being used more in meeting spaces where this little camera is just checking. You get it's green light now if you have a face mask on, or it gives you a little red symbol if you don't have your face mask on. So again, reminding you, please keep your face mask on as another piece of technology that is currently being tested and tried throughout the facility. Today, they just posted a video of a bunch of our representatives walking through the show on LinkedIn, where I'm not going to take your time now to watch it. It's like a 3-minute video, but if you follow me, if you don't, please follow me. I say interesting things once in a blue moon. But if not, you can go on there and you can see I reshared it today, and you'll see this video of some Koelnmesse personnel that's in Europe going through the show and showing some of these different pieces going on as well. Pause there for a moment. Any questions? Okay. In going forward for the show. So a few physical things are going to change at Spoga. So as this is our building plan, let me see if I can make it bigger here. There you go, a little bigger. So one noticeable change, if you hadn't already saw the news, Spoga Horse will no longer be located with spoga+gafa. The equestrian segment will now be hosted only once a year in early February as its own standalone trade show. So it's kind of freed up some space, which actually is very accommodating this year. One of the other things is building 2 is going into renovations. So we actually just don't have access to it. Has nothing to do with COVID, just building renovation time. And another building that is going to be completed by the time January gets here, you'll see this thing called 1+. 1+ is just a building we don't need to use. It's a brand new exhibition building with meeting space, entrances, multi-level floors, and different capacity that we don't need to use. So as you can see, the furniture segment, which used to be in 1, 2, 3, is now 3 and 11. Parts are in 4. That's really where the physical change comes for those types of exhibitors. So some of those customers that in the past, you might be in this call and say, oh, I had a booth in building 2. Not there anymore. Those types of building 2 has moved into building 11. Also, what we're doing, since we're increasing the aisle width, it's now forcing the need for larger exhibition halls. So some of those companies are also being shifted. And you say for the folks that are in the barbecue hall, how are we going to accommodate that? Because Hall 7 was pretty full. Where's the extra space going to come from? Hall 8 was not full to capacity last time. Hall 8 was, if I was to be generous and be positive, I'm going to say 2/3. Might have been a touch under that. So we had space already in those halls. And the other part, I would say, there are going to be companies that aren't willing to make the show. I have one client that at this time, they just feel the show's actually not due to COVID, just a bad time of the year for their product segment. So they're going to skip the show. And there'll be other companies from other parts of the world that just say, I'm still not comfortable in May to make a trip due to the health issues, or because of maybe they're a small company. They themselves may have a higher risk aversion to still not allow them personally to do it. They don't have enough employees to send someone else or don't trust someone else to go. So I think we'll see some natural fall off still for the 21 show, where we'll have opportunity to allow this expansion to happen. Some of the special event areas I could also see being reduced to accommodate some of these things, partly also to reduce the need for just the number of seats needed and kind of reduce those mass gathering points throughout the show. Any questions here?
Guy Gagnon here. Sorry, I'm joining late, but because one of the major concerns we have is how many visitors are actually going to be calling off. And that's number one. Number two is right now the situation is very fluid, and international travel being what it is. And I mean, listen, let's be honest, the current situation in Europe right now is really not encouraging. So how do we know, or what does your research show as to what participation is going to be, or what kind of impact it's going to take?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Guy. I appreciate that. I appreciate you turning off your mic to say it out loud even. A couple different ways I would answer this. And a lot of this is really going to be my feelings, because there's obviously, I can't point to any one specific scenario. The things, Guy, that I mentioned earlier, and I'll reiterate some of it now. One of the things I would say that makes me believe people are going to come is Germany has returned the trade shows. There are trade shows going. There were almost 2 months ago now in Dusseldorf, about 30 minutes north of us. There was a show. It was actually open to the public. Had over 108,000 visitors come through. No outbreak. No, they didn't point to that event as being the super spreader event. Since that time, there's been over 40 events throughout the EU that have been taking place as far as trade shows. Koelnmesse has trade shows starting next month. And then going forward, we have 2 or 3 trade shows per month, building confidence, building resilience, and seeing where the industry is going. In a sister industry, I would say, to what most of you focus to, a lot of times, like here in the US, the National Hardware Show combines our hardware and lawn and garden segments together. In Cologne, we break them out. We have Eisenwarenmesse, the International Hardware Fair. That takes place at the end of February. Not for the furniture guys, so maybe it's not as great as indication for you, but you'll start seeing what buyers are coming to Eisenwarenmesse, who's showing up for that, how well was that show done, how confident did buyer, what was the feedback from people attending the show, anecdotally or in the news or even research wise. Those are things that I think you'll be able to look at and point to. And what I would say, I was completely surprised. For those of you that know the retailer Do It Best, a hardware store chain similar to Ace and True Value, they called me telling me they're planning to make the trip in February. I never thought in a million years a corporate company like that would allow employees to travel. They are sending less employees. It is at the employee's discretion if they don't feel comfortable going, but there's 2 buyers who say, I want to go, I'm okay going, and they're planning to make the trip as of today. I talked with them late last week about a lot of the travel rules and things that they have to do to plan ahead for doing that. I think because in particularly lawn and garden, I would guess that a lot of you have felt this, there's been high demand for your products. Sales have probably been good for most of you. I know myself, I went to go buy a garden hose and sprinkler beginning of August. 2 Home Depots in my neighborhood They literally had one had nothing. He had one garden hose left. The other one had like one sprinkler and a handful of garden hoses. People are buying, the retailers are hungry for these products. Hardware, tools, lawn and garden is a sales have been good. So I think these buyers are saying that they're interested. The other part that I think in the part of realism I would give to you is, will spoga+gafa be what it was last time you were there in 2019? No. I won't lie to you either. Do I think some attendees will stay home still? Absolutely. Without a doubt. Now it's anybody's guess. Are we 25% off? Are we 50% off? If I have that, Vegas is still open for me. I can get to Vegas and I can go make my bets. There's no good way to know how far off we're going to fall from, let's say, the peak of 2019 of about 40,000 visitors. If you look at that, the 40,000 visitors, it's about, I think it's really 60-40, or maybe just about 50-50, somewhere in that range, is domestic German. Then the rest starts spinning. Then the next concentration obviously come from EU. And then yes, do people come from Australia? Companies like Bunnings, absolutely. Do buyers from America come? Believe it or not, we don't get that many. Maybe a few hundred to 1,000 visitors come from the US. So it chips away, yes, at a total attendance, but I think that's some of the impact that you won't see. Maybe some of those fringes, you won't see some of those parts, but that core EU, these guys wouldn't stay home from the summer holidays. So I think that there will be some just local, more domestic interest in the show. So I think it'll take us to 2022 or 2023 to truly have a resilience in seeing exhibitions at large happen. I think another kind of later time frame, my fingers are crossed, shows like the National Hardware Show opens in May. I pray they get their show open. I can't wait to get on that plane to get there. I was sad to see Hearth Patio and Barbecue. They moved. Their show was typically, I think it was going to be February this year in Nashville. They just announced, I think it was last week, that they're now moving it to June. And they moved it to Louisville, which, whatever. I mean, they moved the timing, they moved the city. So I think there's still a dance, and it's partly where in Europe, there's, as I say, because it's essential to our economy and there's a national approach on how to return to these things with national guidelines to make this possible, we'll actually I think have an easier time getting our shows back on their feet because we already have them open. The only thing we've seen here in the States that has actually returned to some capacity of people is football. It shows you what a multi-billion-dollar industry can buy you. They somehow have convinced those local governments to allow, I guess if you put 60,000 people in a stadium and only put 1,000 people in it, it's easy to make them distance. I don't know how many of them technically are public versus friends and family, relatives of the players, but that's about the only thing we can point to that actually has people returning to it here in the States. Europe has a different scenario. China, they've been doing shows since summer. Thailand did shows this summer to the tunes, again, of 50, 60, 70,000 people going in and out of B2B events. Again, following very strict protocols and very strict guidelines. Do you feel that answers, Guy, your question, or are you looking for a little more feedback on that topic?
No, listen, I know nobody has a crystal ball, but that's really the $1 million question, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to come? Who's going to be there? Because, and in reality, I mean, as a company, we haven't even finalized, or we haven't even gotten to the point where we know if we'll be able to travel corporately. So, it may be all well and said, but at one point, corporate might just say, hey, we're not traveling.
I do expect that to come from clients. I'm starting to get that a little bit for our Eyes on Messe for our hardware fair, because that's the end of February. So they're really feeling the pressure. One of the things that we also have is we've recently updated some of our cancellation policies. So one policy changes is if you are coming from a nation that whether you're inbound or return, mandatory quarantine would be more than 5 days. you may cancel, and as long as you could show us that clause, you can may cancel pretty much up to the week before the show, like right up to the beginning of that show. If all of a sudden the rule changes and Illinois or the United States says, Darren, on your turn home, you're going to have a mandatory 15-day quarantine. And Darren now says, hey, for my company, that is too burdensome. That is not fair. I need to cancel because if I come home, I can't spend 15 days at home quarantining. That is a new change to our cancellation policy. The other side, to give you our buy with confidence kind of program, as I think just about everyone on this call, I'm not spotting any names of people who maybe haven't signed up yet. You may sign up now and you may cancel your stand without cause up to 3 months before the opening of the show. So to answer your question, to give you stability, Guy, in your decision making, you signed up already. We actually just recently gave you your space offer. Your all space offers have started to come out. You have until, I don't know, what is that, May, April. So you can go, what is that, March? If I got my thing in my
Yeah,
head.
February, March, I guess.
Yeah. So you can, here as I pull up my calendar here. So the show's opening, where are we? The 30th here. So 1 month, 2 months. You're looking at about February 28th. It's a leap year, so I'll have to get the technical date that they're going to sit on because it's not, the way the days fall out. But you're talking the beginning of March is your window. So part of what I would ask people to do, and when it comes before just jumping and canceling, and I've said the same thing to my hardware companies, their timeline is like February. Their show ends of February, so theirs is the beginning of December. Right now, if we pay attention to the news, man, the sky is falling every day. It's chaos, mayhem. One of my daughter's schools just now, tomorrow they'll switch to remote learning for all, where she was 100% in school. I'm waiting for the other daughter's school to now have that shoe drop. They sent out notices. It's coming soon. Be prepared. We just canceled indoor dining. We're in this, going back into this dark period. If this dark period of closure lasts all the way to February, we all got bigger issues in our lives and we all got bigger issues in society and the world, that we will have different conversations. But by the time we start, I personally feel by the time we get into, and after like Christmas, like get into the new year, let the science catch up a little bit. Let these testing protocols roll out. Some of these faster testing kits that earlier I talked about, a new one that I read about from Abbott, these 10, 15-minute tests, these $5 tests, these spit tests, vaccines potentially coming out. As we start seeing that coming out, and as the epidemiologists say, they knew it was gonna rise. We knew there was gonna be a wave and they predicted it and it's here, and they predicted it'll go down as well. They're not exactly saying when, but it will go back down to the other side. So my hope, knock on wood, do whatever you need to do a little dance, that we'll start coming out the other side of this come January. February, we'll have some stability. So those first quarter shows, it'll be real rough for companies. By our second quarter, we'll start having actual events. People will start doing it. They won't be what they totally were, but there'll be some, there'll be 50% confidence, let's say 75% confidence. And by we move into that May, June, July time frame, we should hopefully be back to some level of comfort, is my hope. And that's my prayer, at least as we kind of move through this. But you have at least that confidence to say, I don't need to make a decision today. The part I would suggest along those lines is Koelnmesse is giving you a plan to get out. You also, your 2019 money has transitioned to 2020 money transitioned to 2020 to 2021. If you cancel your 2021 before that 3-month window, you will get a 100% refund from us on your exhibit space and your exhibit services from Koelnmesse. Airlines have so far been very flexible on changes and cancellations in all of that topic. The one word of caution I would give you is hotels. Cologne hotels or European hotels do not have anywhere near as nice cancellation policies as our American friends here at home. Even if it's a flagship Hyatt, Marriott's that are in Cologne, they seem to operate under more localized rules and restrictions. Though I've told they've been a little more flexible in letting you apply it forward. I would caution people on that topic to truly know your cancellation policies. Any other questions or something that maybe I haven't addressed in detail that you were hoping to hear today? Anyone else? Any other kinds of questions or topics that you want brought up, or anyone else want to make a general comment? I know I saw a couple of people, I think on the call. Klaus, I think you're on here. Because you're physically in Europe. Do you mind unmuting yourself and sharing a little bit because you're there?
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. I'm from Trialing Sort in Atlanta based, but I'm German and actually living less than 40 miles from Cologne. But I can basically confirm everything Darren you said in terms of rules, in terms of hygiene concepts. The bad thing is that the latest development is kind of bad here in Europe and also in Germany. My personal speculation is we're going to have this second wave now. Probably we're going to have more waves. I don't know. But I think May is a good time, but this is just my personal thinking. Yeah, a good time to restart in terms of shows, at least for our company. And we definitely booked for the GAFA. And if it can take place, people will come because people are eager to go to shows again. I know this from myself. And if it can take place, well, there's nothing we can do about it. But I have, I think the whole concepts on hygiene, on safety, and they are all, well established here in Cologne, in Northern Westphalia, which is the state we are in. Yeah, I think we should try to do it. Yeah.
Thank you, Klaus. I appreciate that. And then since you are there so close, if you do want to see the test village, please send me an email and we can get you an invited slot that if you would like to go see what physically Koelnmesse is doing, since you have a different access. And for those that don't know, TriLink there and what we call our GAFA segment of shows, they provide products in what we would call our working in the garden segment for it. So up here in building 6 are those products, anything from chainsaws to weed whackers to biochemicals to decking equipment. Those kinds of product categories are up there. For folks in our furniture segment, a little bit different buyer. But if you want to kind of look towards something to say, hey, what might be out there, we have a residential furniture show called IMM. IMM will open up mid-January, and it's a residential furniture show. And that is also open to the public. So that is something you can kind of take a look at to see, well, what, even though interior residential designers versus maybe outside designers, though there is some blurring of some of those categories, then at least you can look to a furniture-based event to see how is it operating. We even have a furniture manufacturing show earlier in May that is for the furniture manufacturing and component side of the business. So there's maybe some tea leaves that you can kind of look to try to guess, and then ultimately contact your clients. Are your clients telling you directly? Are they willing to show up? Will they physically be there themselves? Thank you, Alexandra. I saw another friend of ours who's in Europe. She's saying on booking.com, she has found some hotels that are actually right now marketing one-day cancellation before the show. So there are opportunities out there, and she just turned on her camera to say they're welcome. I'm glad to see you again. And Alexandra lives physically in Cologne. I mean, Alexandra, do you have anything else maybe you can add? Well, what is it like in Cologne, or how would you, as people who might be nervous to travel to Cologne?
Well, in the past 10 days, as Klaus already said, we have an increasement of infection here, so we are not too happy. But I have the same opinion as Klaus. I think in May, a lot of months passed, and we will see probably or hopefully possibilities to arrange, and we would like to participate at spoga+gafa. And as you said, Darren, I think there's such a demand, especially in the do-it-yourself and garden sector, and people are really hungry to see new products, and that's why we would like to be there. And I'm sorry because I was in in another Zoom meeting, so I couldn't follow the first 15 important minutes. So could you just let us know where, I'm sure you have a link or a presentation where I can find regulations or especially regarding booth construction, because we would like to do our own booth construction. So yeah, I would be happy to receive those information.
Yes, thank you. And I will be, the whole video, this is all being recorded, so that'll be available also to watch and listen.
Okay.
I'm also glad to talk one-on-one with you and your friends at Shelter Logic to kind of figure out how
Yeah.
best to do it. And the same also,
Yeah.
if you haven't yourself been over to the village, please let me know. We would love to get you in there so that way you can gather firsthand information of what the current rules are. Hard part is how are the rules are going to change between now and May? Probably 10 times. I guess one question, if I could ask for you, eating in Cologne, getting takeout food, eating outside. Can you speak a little bit to, so like, because all of us, obviously, we're not going to, myself included, I'm going to come to Cologne. I don't exactly have a home to go sit and make my own dinners in. What is it like to eat?
Yeah, so far you can walk everywhere without mask, except where it is really crowded. So really crowded means we have those zones where all the shops are. So there you have to wear a mask, and if not, you don't have to outside. But if you're going into restaurants, of course, and you still can. Yeah, of course, you have to disinfect your hands. You have to write down address, the cell phone number, and then you cannot choose your table, which usually is normal in Germany, that you can choose your own table. So someone is taking you to the table, and then yeah, before entering, you have to disinfect your hands. What else? Darren asked me what you would like to know. So only in yeah, public transportations, of course, you have to wear a mask, and yeah.
I appreciate that. And one of the things I did forget to mention in regards to overall technology and protocols that we have at Koelnmesse, and again, I will preface this, I don't actually totally understand how it's going to work, but we have a lot of shows between now and spoga+gafa to test it and show us how it's going to work. Is exhibitors are going to be asked to scan anyone who comes into their booth is going to be scanned, and it's for contact tracing capabilities. And then they're going to ask that you scan them on the way out. It's a little unclear whether that scan will also be used for lead retrieval, so that it kind of gives you both in one shot, or you'll scan them once for the COVID thing and say once for lead retrieval. It's also a little unclear. Some places we were told the exhibitors will have one app, which will be that eGuard, so you can see density and what's moving, your ticket, this COVID scanning for your booth, lead retrieval. One place we're told it's one app. Other places I'm seeing that it might be two apps or so. Though I would say let's not worry about that kind of detail, because we have a lot of time and there's a lot of other trade shows in front of us to figure that part out. And I think whatever we have in version 1 will probably change before we get to spoga anyway, because we'll make iterations and improvements along the way on that. One of the other features that most of our other shows are rolling out, but we don't have the details of how it'll come to spoga, is what we're calling at home. So the at home feature is an online component of the show. So we used it on our digital marketing event called Demexco, which took place in September, and that hosted over 30,000 people over 2 days in real-time interactions. I can show you just some real quick screenshots just to give you a feel of it. And Demexco used every component possible of this technology platform that Koelnmesse is offering. Each individual show is then going to implement different components of it that make the most sense for them. If you can imagine what it is. So here's the first kind of general screenshot and how it looks. So it allows for a show floor, networking zones, live programming, and what it contains, advertising, obviously. What it works is, has the different components is when it comes to networking, everyone who gets a badge. So all attendees and all exhibitors are now all going to be individually ticketed. No more of the days for exhibitors where we just gave you a ticket and said, I don't care who has it. Now each person is going to be tracked and with a ticket and a name and an actual registration. It is loaded into the system. You can turn on and off for your own privacy settings, because obviously being in Germany, we have lots of privacy settings. If you choose to make your profile live, you now have essentially, imagine a mini LinkedIn. And you then connect to people and you can connect, see who Darren is connected to. And I would say, hey, Darren, I want to meet that person. Then through the platform, we can do a Zoom call. We can do a chat. We can schedule meetings. All of these features are built and baked into the actual platform. Here's an example of, so I'm looking through the network of people. I'm watching my live program from a stage at the same exact time of what's going on. When you go into an exhibitor booth, because everyone's registered, I can see all of the people registered in that exhibitor booth as a buyer. And I can say, I want to talk to this person because he's the president. Or I want to talk to this buyer. I want to talk to this sales guy because it says he covers my region. Again, I can instant message him. I can request an appointment. If he's online, we can video chat right then and there. Your exhibit booths will be able to have you booking. You can have time that you'll be live in your booth. So you can show videos, you can interact in real time, all of those kinds of different interactive components, along with some of the networking lounges. There was a special interest area, like for the DeMexico event, there was these coffee houses, we'll call them. And there was one for Salesforce users, and I can pop in and see who's there and just chat with other users as an impromptu thing. And I can see how many people were in there and jump in and do again. And then I can go with it and I can meet them, talk in a large chat room, or I can then contact that person and talk as a one-off and schedule my own appointments on the side. And here's some examples of some maybe paid upgrades of different levels of the service. This is something we will be rolling out over the next few months as far as how this will work, how this will interact as far as with Spoga directly. A little bit unknown. So that more of that to come. From what I understand, as I see it on my other shows, is it'll be available. No addition. The baseline will be available for all exhibitors that are registered exhibiting at the show. It's a little more driven towards getting attendees that cannot make the trip to the show. It's a little less. It's at this point, it's less focused on that exhibitor that can't make the trip to the show. But it's every show is operating differently. The one that I'm looking at here for my tire show, they have price points that every exhibitor gets it for free that's physically there. And then there's different price points if you're not going to show up for the level of service that you want through the platform. So that kind of came up with an option. One of my other shows said it's going to be only for in-presence companies. So that's something that we'll be rolling out I would say in the weeks to come, as management makes these approvals and kind of sees how we're going to plug this in. But it's kind of it's an intriguing platform to try to find that hybrid mix. I think this platform will forever stay a part of Spoga because ultimately it allows buyers that, because of scheduling conflict, couldn't make the time commitment to travel, but still want to participate, still have a meeting, or other reasons why they might not have been able to make that trip before. Maybe cost-wise, they just couldn't afford it that year to travel there, or whatever reason. Maybe they have a health reason. I got the flu. I got a strep. I don't know. My kid's sick. I couldn't make the trip this year. All those kinds of reasons. So, and then ultimately it'll start getting content for 365 on a platform, so that we'll start having more live content during the event and then continually through the event to keep these communities live throughout. Any other questions from at large at this point?
Darren, on the booth that you just went over, the virtual experience, which is more for the attendees than for the exhibitors, do you think that they will ever go to where, like, we have a booth set up in Ohio as well as in Swindon, England. So we have 2 booths in our companies. So will they ever go to where we as exhibitors can use that tool if we are unable to travel for any reason?
My hope is yes. That's what I'm lobbying for. Because to me, and I also see it as it's to me, and part of it is I drank the Kool-Aid. I work for a trade show company. I've been here almost 16 years now, so I have to believe. If I don't, then I probably should get fired. to me, it becomes, as we get through our current immediate problem that we have in front of us, I'm thinking more 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road as we go back to life, because we will. I mean, time and time again, we've seen the, Spanish flu came and went. We went back to normal. Wars come and go. We go back to normal. So I think we'll see normalcy in our time. I mean, it's not a forever thing, but to me, it becomes the gateway drug, because to me, there's nothing different than physically meeting a person, letting them sit on your couch, letting them try lighting, as my friends from Fatwood, or he's physically on my screen here as a video, lighting that stick and seeing it light like it just takes so easy. I happen to have some at home. I mean, I have not had such an easy time with my fire pit this year with that product. It's mind numbing how easy it is to do, but I couldn't do that online. But and you're going to say something there?
Thanks for the plug.
You're welcome. Yeah, so go get it, because Amazon. Go buy it. Local supermarket. This is my Instagram moment. I'm not an Instagrammer, but there you go. No, it's just, but that kind of interaction you don't get without real life. It's not a digital thing to be had. But yet there are startup companies who just can't afford it. I mean, to come to a trade show in Cologne from America, your booth is like $3,500 to $4,000 for just the most basic thing. Plus, you got to travel. Then you got time out of the office. Then you got food. Then you got entertainment. I mean, it could be, for a base level taste, $8,000 to $10,000 US, bare minimum. As my friend Guy's here, I mean, when you look at furniture guys, I feel bad for I love furniture companies because they buy really big space. And, if you want 3 patio sets, you need a lot of space. Or Alexandra works for Shelter Logic. Thank God, because they take a huge booth because they have these huge shelters that they set up. So it forces it to happen, but it allows as a gateway drug. So you can come in, try the online 1 year, and then graduate to a full presence online in the future. Yes. So, I mean, I know it was a long answer to your question. My hope is yes, that they get there. Koelnmesse, we're learning as all trade show companies around the world, there's unfortunately not great tech for virtual trade shows. It's been since the dawn of the internet. People said trade shows are dead. No one's going to go to trade shows. The internet's here. Nobody needs a trade show. I think the National Hardware Show would disagree. spoga+gafa, Eisenmesse would disagree. SEMA, an automotive show. Every year this thing gets bigger and bigger. CES gets bigger and bigger. I guess there's a need for events. We do a video game trade show, right? Things that these kids should get online. We actually sell out entrance. We have to close down the admittance into the show. 365,000 people come for a video game trade show. But yet it's all on, like, why do kids need to come online? They do it. I mean, think about an audience who should have nothing to do in real. We literally close the door on them and they can't get in. So that's where it'll take time to get back there to build that confidence. And us as an entrenched trade show company, we have a physical building. Our goal is to put people in the buildings. I think management will struggle with the disruption of how do you think differently and how do we find new hybrids. I'm actually testing from a video game company. They have a trade show going on right now where I'm walking through it like I'm playing Halo. For anyone that knows those games or any of those kinds of in first person shooting video games that you might see, it is literally that on a keyboard, and I find it the most dysfunctional thing on earth. But I'm also 50 years old, and I have a feeling I'm not the customer. But it's an interesting experience, and you walk around this universe, and I can chat and have an avatar, and I'm walking into a booth, and I could scan a QR code, and I walk in, and the music comes up, and a video for me comes in, and it says, "Welcome, Darren." And it's weird. It's unique. I'm trying it. But as I said, it's very hard on the keyboard to walk through the environment. I'm not getting it yet. But yeah, my goal is that we will get there, particularly by the time Spoga gets here. They'll come to the realization that we need to allow for hybrid exhibitors like we allow for hybrid attendees. A long answer to a relatively shorter question. Sorry for my longness there. We're at the hour mark. I know some of you probably are now bored of hearing me. Is anybody else have questions or things that they want addressed? If not, I would say please go ahead and you can leave the room. Alexandra, if you want to stay on, I'll be glad to kind of talk a little bit about booth design and some of the details, because we did do some of it at the beginning. And we can kind of look at that, or do you need to go and we can chat another time?
Yes, because I have another Zoom meeting. It started 5 minutes ago. I'm sorry.
Send me an email and we'll go through things. And if we want, we'll conference with the guys in Connecticut as well and get everyone in one place together. Let me know what's good for you.
Great.
And
Okay.
Guy,
Thank you very much, Darren.
You got it. And Guy, yes, I'm going to send out a Zoom link to everybody. Not a Zoom link, a YouTube link once I edit down the little beginning piece and edit off a few pieces. This will be shared on YouTube, hopefully by this afternoon, if not by tomorrow morning.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, sayonara, ciao,
Wiedersehen.
shalom,
Thank you.
Thank
adios.
you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you for your time.